Good morning, everyone, and Happy New Year to you. We want to welcome you to our webinar today, and we're excited to have Gino Pack from Innovia Consulting to kick off our first webinar for 2021. Gino is one of our project managers, and he's going to be presenting on tools for the ERP Admin in Business Central SaaS. And I know you're all eager to get started with the presentation. And before I pass it over to Gino to cover on this hot topic, I just want to remind you that we are recording this webinar as well as all of our webinars, and it will be posted to our on-demand webinar library for you to review again or share with anyone. And if you do have any questions, please feel free to type them in the questions box, and we will have a Q&A session at the end of our webinar. So now I'm going to pass it on over to Gino to kick off our presentation.
Great, thank you, Angie. Hi, everybody. It's nice to be here at this beginning of 2021. I hope everyone has a wonderful, wonderful 2021 and everyone stays safe and healthy. So today's topic is going to be something that, in my opinion, doesn't get talked about a lot. It's tools for the ERP admin and Business Central SaaS. As Angie said, my name's Gino Pack. I'm a project manager here at Innovia Consulting, and I've been working with Nav and Business Central for a little over 10 years now. First on the customer side, and then 2 years ago I moved over to the partner side. And since moving over to the partner side for the last 2 years, a lot of my implementations have really been focused around the SaaS environment. So talking about, being an ERP admin prior to coming over to the partner side, I really was shocked to see how different it is for ERP admins to manage a Business Central environment and understand the troubleshooting tools that are out there for ERP admins to assist their users. So I thought it'd be great to speak on this topic. So today we're going to talk about a couple of things here. So the first thing we're going to talk about is managing the environment. I'm going to go ahead and give an overview of the Business Central Admin Center. Talk about adding and update apps in the Admin Center. Managing users. Talk a little bit about Business Central updates. And then briefly, high level, talk about troubleshooting the environment as well. So with that, this webinar is going to really be demo focused. You'll see here that I'll get through my slides pretty quickly, and then we're just going to jump right into it, because I feel like what I want to show everyone today is it will be difficult to explain over a PowerPoint. It's better that I show you. So the demos that we're going to go through is I'm going to show you how to add a user to Business Central. I'm going to show you how to tour the business. I'm going to give you a tour of the Business Central admin panel, which is the back end of Business Central where you can manage your environments. And then I'm going to go over some brief troubleshooting. I'm not going to go into too much deep detail in the troubleshooting because it can be a lot, and there will be future webinars on these. But I'm going to show you what tools there are in Business Central SaaS for troubleshooting the environment. And then also I'm going to just quickly high level go over telemetry and application insights for Business Central as well, which is a Microsoft Azure product that's used for displaying environment information and telemetry. So as the Business Central,
I'm sorry,
go ahead,
Gino.
Angie.
I did launch that poll
Okay.
that you wanted on everyone's current Nav BC deployment. So if everyone could please vote, that way we just have a sense of where you're at in your company.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Angie. If you could answer the poll, it'll help me gear the conversation towards who's on the call. So today, as I mentioned, we're mainly going to be talking about SaaS. Managing a SaaS environment is very different from managing an on-premise environment for many reasons, and I'll show you here in a little bit. But as an ERP administrator, an IT administrator, these are the type of questions that you may have when moving from an on-premise ERP system to a SaaS based ERP system. How do I assign licenses? In the old nav world, you're used to receiving an FLF file that you have to upload into your database. How do you assign permissions to users, or how do you assign that license to a user? How do you manage the Business Central environment without direct access to the server? You don't have that remote desktop connection into the environment where you can go restart your services, install updates, etc., or have direct access to a development environment like you did before. And and then they want to understand, how do updates work? Because the truth is, you're going to get updates whether you like it or not in a SaaS environment. The point of a SaaS environment is to have the least amount of management as possible. So how does Microsoft roll out updates, and how do I manage those updates so they're not disruptive to my business? And then how do I troubleshoot when a user is claiming they're having performance issues? What are tools that I can use as the Business Central administrator that I can use to resolve the issue quickly, so I don't have to open a ticket with Microsoft? While you have the ability to do that, you reach out to your partner, you reach out to Microsoft, and they can help troubleshoot, but there's a delay that comes with that. So what can you do as the administrator to address performance issues or identify them? So the first thing I want to just briefly go over is just understanding what SaaS is. Okay, so there are 4 different platforms you can technically have your software or infrastructure running on. The traditional IT infrastructure was what is your typical in-house on-premise environment, where you control everything from the applications all the way down to the networking. And then you have infrastructure as a service. That's where you can have a little bit, you give up less control of your physical hardware, so like your networking, your storage, your servers, and then you control the operating system on up, along with some virtual networking. That would be an example of deploying a Windows server on Azure, okay, or deploying Windows Server in a private data center. You don't have control of the hardware anymore, you don't have control of the storage, you can allocate it, but all of that is managed by an MSP or by another provider. And then there's platform as a service. An example would be Azure SQL, okay, where you have a SQL database that's running on Azure, but the SQL server itself is managed by Microsoft. You can access the data, you can change things, you can manage the actual database itself, but when it comes to managing from the actual server level and software, that is where you give up control to your MSP or the provider, such as Microsoft. And then you have software as a service, and that's where Business Central SaaS lies. Now, Business Central SaaS is where Microsoft really controls all the way everything that's fully delivered as a service. They manage the networking all the way up to the application itself. You still have control of your data. You have control on where your data is housed. But as for managing updates, features, the application itself, that all is managed under Microsoft's realm. So those are, and you can have Business Central installed in all 4 of these ways. But the method that we're going to talk about is software as a service, because I really think that if you're deploying in SaaS, you as an ERP or IT administrator need to know how you can still have the most control of your environment while leaving the heavy work to Microsoft. So this is, we're going to jump right into demos here. So the first thing I'm actually going to demo is adding a user to Business Central, okay? Because adding a user is very different than what it was when you're on premise. When you're on premise, you order your licenses directly through your Microsoft partner. You go to your partner, say, I need to add another user to my Business Central environment. They process an order, then either they install or email you a license file to upload into your environment so you can have that additional user. Well, in Business Central SaaS, there is no license file. Now, the first part is true. You still order your licenses directly through your Microsoft partner, but when the licenses are purchased, all of them are managed and assigned through Microsoft 365 Admin Center. This is the same Admin Center where you add your Office 365 licenses for your email, if you're using the cloud-hosted Exchange, and order licenses for things like Power BI, Power Platform. So Microsoft is driving all of its licensing through its Microsoft 365 stack, okay? And as you can see here, if I click on licenses in my Microsoft 365 admin environment, you can see that I have my Business Central Premium and Team Member licenses here, okay? And it shows me how many are available, how many are assigned, etc. Okay? And now what you do is you assign those licenses to a Microsoft or to one of your users. So if I go under my active users here, I can see under which licenses that are assigned to each one of my users. I see that under my username here, gpack at mybcdemo.com. I see that I have Project Operations, Power BI, E5, AX7, etc. I could click on my username here, and under Licenses and Apps, I see that I have Business Central Premium assigned as well. So this is where I go ahead and assign my license to myself in Business Central. Now, if you want to go ahead and create a new user, it's as simple as adding a user. You don't have to have an Office 365 license to add a user to Business Central. But obviously it's recommended to take advantage of, email capabilities and whatnot. But then you can also you can create user templates as well. Okay, so if I want to just add a Business Central user, I can create a user template in Microsoft 365. I could create my user. I'm not going to create a new one, by the way. And what it's going to do is it's going to automatically assign my user a Dynamics 365 Business Central Premium user license. And once the user is added, that user you'll be given a password for that email for that user to be able to log into Business Central. Okay, and from there you can then go into Business Central and add permission sets and whatnot. Then what I'll do is I'll jump into my Business Central environment now. And from my Business Central environment, now you're asking yourself, okay, I added the user from the Microsoft 365 Admin Center. From there, how do I then assign the user to get access to Business Central itself now that they have a license? Okay, because there's two levels of permissions. It's the license to actually use the software, and then the permissions to what they can actually do in the environment. Okay, so from there, I'll go into Business Central and I'll use my hourglass or the tell me function to search for users. I'll go ahead and select users. And you'll see that I do have one user in my environment currently. Now, I have more users assigned Business Central, as you can see, in my Microsoft 365 environment than I do have in my environment here. So how do I add new users? Because I can't necessarily click the new button here. So Microsoft does have a function in here that says update users from Office 365. So if I go ahead and select that, and I go through the little wizard here, and what it is doing is it's going out to Microsoft 365, going to my tenant, looking for the users that have been assigned a Business Central license, and it's now pulling it into my Business Central environment so then I can go ahead and assign permissions to it. So as it's doing this here, it'll take just a second, and I'll go ahead and hit close. And as you can see, these users are now in Business Central. So now I can go into a user such as Kevin here. I'll go ahead and select Kevin. And as you can see, Kevin has already been assigned a basic set of permission sets here. He's been assigned the Dynamics 365 license. And with that, he's been assigned the Dynamics 365 Premium Business Central, the standard permission sets. And as you can see, the permission sets have been added here as well. So as far as Kevin's concerned, he can now go into the environment and he can now process data. And you can assign additional permission sets as needed. Sometimes you may have an ISV that has specific permission sets for that ISV. You would just go ahead and find it from the list and add it to Business Central. You may even need to pare down the number of permissions a user may have. And that's where Microsoft does create standard permission sets. I'm not going to dig into this because permission sets can be a spiral because they run so deep. But what I always recommend is that you start with the basic Business Central permission sets that are based off of a specific user or user's role. So they have Business Central permissions that are around posting, jobs, inventory, basic HR, finance, creating and viewing customers, so basic ISV access, so apps. So what I recommend is starting to assign basic permission sets to Business Central users, and as they get errors, you can create a custom permission set, or as you use what's called the permission set recorder to record actions that users are doing and create a gap permission set from there as well. I do not recommend modifying Business Central permission sets because with every Business Central update, Microsoft can modify or change the permission sets themselves. So that is adding users to Business Central. As an admin, also, you may want to learn a little bit more about your environment and how to manage the back end of your environment. Right now, we're at the front end. Microsoft gives every Business Central tenant a admin center. Okay, and to access that, it's one of two ways. Okay, so as you can see up in the URL here, it has your businesscentral.dynamics.com, and it has your tenant ID. So think of this as your server address, and then your environment name. So every tenant can have multiple environments. So you can have multiple production environments. Let's say you have a location here in the United States, you have a location in Europe, you have a location in Mexico. Those all need different localizations of the Business Central install. So you can have multiple production environments for those regions. But all of them will be under the same tenant and all managed under the same Microsoft 365 account. Now, and so what I'll do is I'll go ahead and I can either type in admin here to get to the admin panel, but Microsoft also has added a simple way to get to the admin panel. That's if you hit the gear button up in the top right-hand corner of your client, and if you select Admin Center, and it will jump right into the Business Central Admin Center. Now, not every user has the ability to get into the Business Central Admin Center. Okay, there are two types of permissions that could be assigned, or there's actually three types, but for an end user, there's only two. So the three types that you would need one is called an internal administrator, which is assigned typically to your a partner. Okay, so that gives your partner the ability to get into your environment to help set it up, assist with troubleshooting, etc. The second one is the global admin on your Microsoft 365 account. And the third one is the help desk user on your Microsoft 365 account. And those can be assigned through the Microsoft 365 Admin Center. So if I select a user, I'll select myself here, for instance. You'll see that there are roles in Microsoft 365. And if I select Manage Roles, you'll see that I have these various roles that I could assign to a specific user, okay? And so, global admin is the highest permission level set. Highly recommended that you give this to the limited amount of users as possible. You don't want everyone to have this. And then the second one is what's called help desk admin, okay? So if you assign them this permission set, it will allow them to get into the Business Central Admin Center, as well as do some other Microsoft 365 tasks. And if you hit this little icon in here, the tooltip will display and show you the non-admin roles that the help desk admin has. But it'll allow a user or a power user or a Business Central ERP admin to get into the admin center. So jumping into the admin center here, it gives you an overview of the environments that are in your Microsoft tenant. So think of tenant as your on-premise server. Okay. So what environments are in my server here? So I have 2 production environments currently, and then I have 3 sandboxes. So think of sandboxes as your test environments. Okay. You can make copies of them. You can create blank sandboxes. You can create blank sandboxes. You can create copies of production from the Business Central Admin Center. All of that can be done right from here, okay? Now, if I want to go ahead and drill into an environment, I can go ahead and select it. So I'll click on this production Gino environment here. And it gives me some additional information about my environment, such as where it's stored and what version it is on. And I can even create some actions with the database. I could create a database export, which will allow me to take a backup of all the data that's in my environment. You unfortunately cannot restore it to an on-premise version of Business Central. That's not supported by Microsoft, but you can restore it to SQL Server on-premise and be able to access your data if needed. You can open up Microsoft support tickets from here. You can configure your update settings, which we'll get into a little bit later. You can even rename, delete, and refresh your environment, which I won't get into right now. And then you can also take a view at the active sessions. So these, if I select active sessions here, this will go ahead and give me a view of all the users that are currently in my database. And it even gives me the ability to kick somebody out if needed. So this is one of those troubleshooting tips that I was going to mention earlier or later is if you have a user that is frozen or they can't seem to log into Business Central, one thing would be to come into the Manage Sessions page and cancel their session. So then they'll be, so if I go ahead and cancel my session here, what will happen is they'll be kicked out of Business Central and they'll get a error message here saying that, the Business Central client was paused. So if I hit refresh, it'll go ahead and re-log me into Business Central. I'm going to jump back over to environments here really fast. And go into my production Gino environment. The bottom half of the environment page is the version management of the environment. This is where Microsoft controls the updates for Business Central, okay? And I'm gonna jump into updates here in just a little bit. You can set update windows. You can see what updates are available for your environment, etc. And like I said, I'll get into that in a little bit. The other piece is the apps that you have installed in your environment. One of the cool things about Business Central is you have the ability to extend your environment. So add additional pre-built functionality onto your environment to accomplish your business specific tasks. Like if you need a warehousing module added so you can use scan guns in your warehouse, if you need a shop floor environment set up, so if you have customizations for your environment, if you use ISVs like Jet Reports, you can add those apps to your environment and also control the updates to them. And that's all under apps. So if I select apps here, you can see it'll list all the apps by the environment that I have selected, okay? And as I'm scrolling through, I can see the versions, the app name, the publisher of the app. And then what's going to happen is Business Central is going to check to see if there are any updates available to the apps, okay? And it'll say the installed version and the latest available version, and I have the ability to update these apps from here as well, okay? Now, when it comes to release notes and stuff like that, that's something that you would need to reach out to the ISV or the publisher of the app to find out what's actually included and if there are any updates that need to happen from within the Business Central client in order to take advantage of that update. But this will give you a high-level overview of all the apps that are installed in your Business Central environment and actions that you can take on them. Notification recipients is another piece of the admin panel. This allows you to get notified on particular topics such as when an update is available, when an update completes and fails. It gives you, and Microsoft does sometimes may send out notices on updates that are being put on hold or anything that any warnings that are triggered by your environment would come through to the notification recipients. So definitely adding your email here, the ERP Admins email here, as well as possibly a help desk email so a ticket can be created. Telemetry I'm going to skip over because that's going to be a separate topic. Reported outages. So if you report an outage your environment, they get logged here and a ticket is created through Microsoft. Operations, this is a fairly new page where Microsoft is going to go ahead and send telemetry data here on long-running background tasks that you may have in your environment. And then capacity is another pretty big one here as well. So this shows you what you have available when it comes to storage in your environment. Currently, Microsoft gives you 80 gigs, an 80 gig database size, as well as a 40 gig file size. Okay, so in Business Central, you have the ability to attach images and attach documents to Business Central documents such as invoices, etc. And that storage is counted separate from the actual data in Business Central. So Microsoft splits that out here. And then towards the bottom, storage use by environments, you can see how many how much storage is happening per environment, so you can keep an eye on what environments are using up the most of your storage. And then your environment quota. So it shows you how many licensed production environments you have, and then how many licensed sandboxes that you have as well. And that is the Business Central Admin Center. The next piece that I want to jump into is updates. So I'm going to pop back into my slideshow here and talk about Business Central updates, because the truth is updates are going to happen to your environment now, whether we like them or not. When previously in the nav world, Microsoft would need to release a new version every 1 to 2 years, and it was a major deal to upgrade. But with Microsoft migrating from their old code base to their extension-based model, it makes updates come easier, and Microsoft can release functionality quicker now. And it gives you the opportunity to always be on the latest version of the product. So Microsoft has 2 update channels that they follow. They have a major update channel, and then they have a minor update channel. For minor updates, they're what are called cumulative updates. Okay, so they're released every month. So Microsoft will release, there usually includes bug fixes and minor feature updates. It's very rare that Microsoft will release a major feature update, although they did in version 17.1. They released an entire update to their email functionality, but it's very rare Microsoft will give you will put a major feature in a cumulative update. Typically, they're just bug fixes. And then updates will be applied during a identified update window. So you have the ability to set an update window for your environment, and typically Microsoft will apply that update during that time. And then updates can't be scheduled for minor updates, unfortunately. So minor updates will be rolled out typically the second week of every month, and will roll out through the end of the month. Okay, so Microsoft will just push them to your environment. The other piece is your major updates. So Microsoft releases 2 major releases per year. So one in April, they call that Wave 1. And then one in October, they call it Wave 2. And those typically release major features or changes to the Business Central platform and application, okay? And typically Microsoft will release feature notes 60 days prior to rolling out the update or the major update. They'll allow you to create preview sandboxes. So in your Business Central admin environment, you can create a sandbox that allows you to preview the next version of Business Central 30 days prior to rolling it out. And then Microsoft also allows you, since they can be a little more major and you may want to test all of your custom functionality in a test environment prior to receiving the update, Microsoft typically gives you 60 days to schedule your major update. Okay, but after 60 days, they typically roll it out automatically. So they do limit you in the amount of time that you can actually schedule the update before they actually just push it to your environment. So I want to jump back into Business Central here really quickly, and I will show you in the Admin Center here what the version, what the version or what the update cycle looks like. Okay, so if I go ahead and select my production environment here, you'll see that under version management here, I see the application version and the platform version. Okay, they both get updated once a month with cumulative updates. And when an update is available, Microsoft will fill in the remaining fields. Okay, whether the update is being rolled out, the update's being scheduled, et cetera, and when it's scheduled for you. Now, what I do recommend is everyone go into their environment and set what's called an update window. Okay, this ensures that your environment does not go into an update mode while where it can cause disruption to your business. Okay, because if an update window is not set, when Microsoft's scripts hit that server, they're just going to run the update. So by defining a update window based off of your time zone, I want my updates to be 12 a.m. to between 12 a.m. and 6 a.m. and go ahead and hit save. Oops, expired. It's going to reload here. Just a second. Okay. I'm going to go into my production environment. I'm going to define my update window. 12 to 6 a.m. as the recommended update window is fine for me. And so now the update window is set. Okay. That's the first thing that you should do. The second thing you should do is set yourself as the notification recipient if you're the ERP admin. If you set yourself as a notification recipient, then you'll receive an update when the update is scheduled and when the upgrade takes place, and you'll get a notification if the update fails or if the update completes. Okay, so that's why it's very important to, 1, set a notification recipient, and 2, set your update window. Okay, now for major updates, you can actually select a date you want your environment to update. So if I go select update settings and hit set update date, during a major upgrade, a calendar will pop up and will allow me to select a date. Because there's no updates available, I can't select an update date right now, but I will be able to do that once a major update is rolling out. And Microsoft can be very transparent when it comes to Business Central updates. So I've concluded some, I think this is the one. Yeah. So Microsoft does have a bunch of help docs out there that allows you to see how Microsoft continues to, how they roll out their updates. Okay, so they are very transparent in that as well. And you can see here, I'll flip back over to my slides here. Look at the useful links. So here are several ak.ms links that shows, that gives you Microsoft information on Business Central updates, Business Central telemetry, Business Central cumulative update release notes. So this is a great one because it actually shows you what is released with a minor update. So there are 2 update windows here, that your update pages here that you can save. And if you would like this, just please let me know, and I can send you these links as well. Or if you type it in the chat, maybe Angie we can be sure to email you this useful links page here. And then the last piece I wanted to talk about today was troubleshooting your environment. There are multiple times a user may call you or email you and say, my session is frozen, I can't do anything. I'm getting a message saying that a user is locked in the environment, or a user is locked, a specific page that I'm working on. So there are areas in Business Central that you as the ERP administrator can go into to help relieve some of those relieve some of those issues that your users are experiencing. So the first one I want to show you is in the actual Business Central client. Okay, there's two that I want to show you in the Business Central client. The first one is a database locks page. Okay, and typically, I'm going to search Business Central for database locks. And on the database locks page, typically locks happen when a user is making an update to a record on a table. And it's basically, it's the purpose of it is for, is to make sure you do not have data corruption. Okay, so sometimes the ERP system has to lock a table to make a change so no one else overrides that change. And sometimes you'll see that around posting or when you're importing a lot of data. Those are the type of things that you may see some database locks messages, but typically I'd say about 90% of the time, database locks will be, no one will notice in your environment. But sometimes you'll get it. So when a database lock is occurring as an ERP admin, you can go ahead and log into the navigate to the database locks page, and it'll show you the where the lock is occurring. Okay, and it'll show you the actual username that is causing the lock, which is interesting because then if if you reach out to that user and ask them what they're doing, they may come back and say, "Oh, I forgot to put a filter on a report." Well, that's a simple fix as an ERP admin now, because what you can do is you can go into your admin center, open your environment and view your sessions and kill that user session. Okay. Once a session's killed, it should release the lock in Business Central. So that's a tool that you can use those are tools you can use in combination to relieve the pressure on your system. The second one is understanding where an error is coming from. When you're working with your Microsoft partner or you're working with Microsoft on a support ticket, sometimes they'll ask you for information called call stacks. Okay, and basically what it is, it's the lines of code that are trying to run that's causing the error message that the user is receiving in the client. Okay, and to access that, we can simply go into the you go into the question mark, go to help and support, and from here you can see that there is a view the last known error in Business Central. And then from here, obviously there was no error occurred. So from here, you would be able to see what the error message was, when it occurred, and several lines of code that you can provide to your Microsoft partner, or you can provide to your Microsoft to help diagnose the issue. Excuse me. The last piece of troubleshooting that I want to go ahead and quickly go over with you is telemetry. So telemetry is basically what I would consider event. Business Central is releasing events to what's called Application Insights. And Application Insights is an Azure service. So what you would do is you would spin up an Azure Application Insight service, which we can certainly help you do. I do have a blog post out there on Innovia's website that explains how to spin up an Azure Application Insights service. And then from there, you can enter your Azure service into your Business Central tenant. So if I go into my environment here, and I look at my production Gino environment, I can see that there's an Application Insights key. Once that key is put in place, then Business Central will start emitting events and telemetry to Application Insights that could help with troubleshooting. And here's just, just when looking at this Microsoft doc here, here's just some of the large amounts of telemetry information that Business Central releases that you as an ERP admin or an IT manager can use to help troubleshoot issues, okay? And some of this telemetry is even available for on-premise. So you can use this in both in SaaS and on-premise. So things like authorization, users getting in and out, page information, field monitoring. So if there's sensitive fields in your Business Central environment that you need to monitor, that gets emitted as well. Email failures. So when users are emailing documents out of Business Central, database locks, long-running code, long-running SQL queries, page views, so web service requests, report generation. So all of this telemetry that Microsoft is pumping into Application Insights, you can utilize to create Power BI reports, dashboards, etc., to be able to monitor your environment and assist with troubleshooting as users as users report it, or take a proactive approach to your environment as well when you're noticing performance issues in specific areas or when running specific reports as well. So that is Business Central Telemetry, and with every release, Microsoft is adding to this telemetry list as well. So it's really cool that Microsoft is providing ERP administrators the tools to be able to troubleshoot their environment on their own without having to be reliant on Microsoft or reliant on the partner to help diagnose things. So I've left some useful links here, and if you'd like them, just like I said, please, we can send them out via email, or just please let us know via the chat or via the questions that you'd like these useful links. We can go ahead and send them out to you. That way you can continue to investigate on your own, and please feel free to reach out to Innovia, and we can talk deeper, especially around Business Central and Application Insights, because it's a really cool tool that Microsoft released to help you troubleshoot your environment. With that, I do want to open it up to any questions, Angie, if there are any.
Thank you, Gino. No questions have come through, but if anyone does have any, please feel free to type them in and we can get them addressed for you. All right, Gino, it doesn't look like anything is coming through, so you did a very good job.
Alrighty.
All right, well, thank you everyone for attending our webinar today, or if you're watching on demand, we thank you for taking some time out to join us. Thank you, Gino, for presenting. Really appreciate that.
No problem, happy to.
And I just want to make you all aware of our new training workshops that we have going on. We have a variety of them to choose from. So if you visit our training workshop page, that's innovia.com/workshops, you can find out all the information and register for the training workshop that fits for you. And we do have more webinars coming up. This Thursday, January 14th, we have Ryan McBee and Gabriella from iSolutions, and they will be presenting on Save Time with Collection Management and Payments for Business Central. And next Wednesday, January 20th, we have Richard Lee from Dynamic Web presenting on how to launch a B2B e-commerce channel your customers will use. So check out our website for more of our upcoming events, and that's innovia.com/events. And Innovia has a podcast, if you haven't heard of it already. We've had it for almost 2 years now, and I just want to encourage you to listen to the selection that Steve Waltz and Jeff Pergolski, those are our two hosts. They've provided a lot of different podcasts and a variety of different topics and speakers. You can find out about all the different podcast platforms to listen to on our podcast page, and that's innovia.com/podcast. So check out that selection and subscribe so you'll be notified when those new episodes air. All right, everyone, thank you again for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you soon on another Innovia webinar.